at finding the hypotenuse of a right-angled triangle using Pythagoras' theorem. Our right-angled triangle has a side of 15 centimetres and a side of 20 centimetres, and we're finding the hypotenuse. Down the right-hand side, we've got some instructions to help us with our process. Step number 1 tells us to label the hypotenuse as C. So our hypotenuse is this long side, or the one opposite the right-angled triangle, and we write that as a C. And we label the other two sides as A and B. Doesn't matter which is A and which is B, so let's say the 15 centimetre side is A and the 20 centimetre side is B. As long as hypotenuse is C, the other two sides, it doesn't matter what we label them. So let's tick off step number 1, we've labelled our sides. Step number 2, write the formula, or write Pythagoras' theorem, which is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. We've written the formula, we can tick off step 2. Step number 3 asks us to substitute in our values into this formula. So our value for C, we don't have a value for C, it's just C, that's what we're trying to find. So we have C squared equals, we have a value for A, that's 15 centimetres, so we can put 15 in instead of A squared, plus B. Our B is 20 centimetres, so instead of B we can put in 20 squared. And that's our values substituted into Pythagoras' theorem formula. So we've done step 3 and we can tick that one off too. Time for step 4, calculating the sum of the squares. So for step 4, that really means to calculate the sum, the addition of 15 squared plus 20 squared. It's asking us to take this right-hand side of the formula and put it into our calculators. And that tells us that C squared will be equal to, when we pop that in our calculator, 625. So C squared equals 625. We can tick off step number 4, we calculated the sum of the squares. And that takes us to step number 5, taking the square root of both sides. In our equation right now, we haven't found what C is, we've found what C squared is. If we want to know what C is, we have to take the square root to get rid of that squared. And if we do it to one side of our equation, we have to do it to the other side to keep it balanced. So on the left-hand side, our square root and our square, they undo each other or cancel each other. And we're left with C equals. Square root of 625 is 25. We can tick off step 5, we've taken the square root of both sides. Step 6 asks us to write our answer. And don't forget the units. We're working in centimetres here, so our answer needs to be in centimetres as well. C equals 25 centimetres. We can tick off step 6, we wrote the answer and we included our units. And then we come to step 7, this is our checking step. Because we found the hypotenuse, which is the longest side of the triangle, our value should be bigger or larger than the other two values for the other sides of the triangle. 25 centimetres is larger than 15 and 20 because it's the longest side, so that means there's a good indication that we've selected our formula correctly and we've found the correct answer. So we can check off it is larger than the other two sides. Now it's your turn. Pause this video and have a go at using Pythagoras' theorem to find the hypotenuse of this right-angled triangle. The steps are on the side to help you out. And once you're finished, play the video again and we will check the working out together. All right, hopefully you've got an answer and you've got some calculations. Let's work through this example together and see how you went. Make sure you're checking that your working out is the same as what I'm doing. Step number 1 tells us to label the hypotenuse and the other two sides. The hypotenuse is C, and the other two sides, it doesn't matter which is which, let's call this one A and this one B. Now, if you labelled them the other way around, you said 8 centimetres was B and 6 centimetres was A, that's okay. Your calculations will look a little bit different, but you'll get the same answer at the end. So we can tick off step number 1, label the triangle. Step 2, writing the formula. Our formula is C squared equals A squared plus B squared. Write the formula. Step 3, substitute in your values. So C, that's what we're trying to find. We don't know C yet, so we leave it as C. Equals, our A is 8, or yours might have been 6, but we did 8 squared plus B is 6, so 6 squared. Now, if you'd labelled them backwards, you would have 6 first and 8 second, but you'll still have the same numbers added together. We can tick off substituting into the formula. Then we need to calculate the sum of the squares. Remembering that that's the right-hand side of our formula. The sum, addition, of the two squares, 8 squared and 6 squared. When we pop that in the calculator, that gives us 100. Take off step 4. Step 5 is taking the square root of both sides. So we have square root of c squared and square root of 100. The square root and the squared will cancel each other, and we have c on the left. Square root of 100 equals 10. So we've taken the square root of both sides. We wrote our answer. Oh, don't forget the units. We're working in centimeters again, so this is 10 centimeters. And we check that it's longer than the other two sides. Is it longer than 8 and 6? Yes, which makes sense. It's our hypotenuse. It is our longest side. So we check that that makes sense. And you should have ended up with C equals 10 centimeters. So your hypotenuse of this right angle triangle is 10 centimeters.